How's it going, everyone? This is Alonzo Spencer, Lonnie Spencer here with you on the Arsenal Strategy podcast. And with me is my cousin John, by way of Charlotte, and now he lives in Fort Mill, South Carolina. John, how's it going today, dude?
Good, Lonnie. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, John. So would you tell the people in the audience how you became a sports fan, how your dad and your uncles influenced you throughout the years? You're from the Charlotte area. You were originally from Charlotte. So how has the landscape in Charlotte changed since you've grown up? I know that Charlotte has been an interesting place. It's known for its NASCAR. Am I right?
You are.
Right. Charlotte Hornets came about, I believe, in 88, 89 season, and then the Panthers came around in 95. Talk us through how, that all came about, and I know it takes a lot for that to happen. And the early success of the Charlotte Hornets and the Panthers. It's an interesting city. I've been there once to visit you guys back in 2020, and it's a magnificent town. Even northern South Carolina is very interesting as well. So, talk us about how you became a sports fan and how your dad influenced you and your uncles. My dad's cousins, how they influenced you and all that.
Right. So am I the first guest on your show?
No, you're my first family member on the show.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So our dads, grew up in the same place in South Jersey. So they were all, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, every Philadelphia sport. So I was born in Charlotte, and growing up, we didn't have any professional sports teams. We had a AAA baseball team, but other than that, we didn't have any major league sports, the NFL, NBA, any of those teams. So growing up, a lot of the people around here were either Redskins fans, Falcons, Braves, MLB. The only games that we could get on TV were it was on WGN, where we watched the Cubs, or TBS, where we would watch the Braves. So, and even then, growing up, the Cubs were only on during the day, so they didn't have lights at the time, so all their games were day games. So we kind of grew up watching them, and but again, our dads were from up north around Philly, so I always followed the Phillies and Sixers and Eagles. These were fun times to watch. Growing up, I was 11, 12, 13 years old in the really early 90s watching the Phillies, which were those were fun teams to follow, and even the Eagles with Reggie White and Randall Cunningham and Mike and all those guys, and then the Sixers with Charles Barkley and Moses Malone, and so it was a fun time to kind of follow the Philly teams. And then, like you said, coming down, being from Charlotte, we had the Hornets come in, late 80s, which was it was a really big deal for Charlotte, having our first, NBA team. And there was a big, no pun intended, there was a big buzz around the city. And there was they did a lot of stuff in the community. They would come to the elementary schools, and they would do a lot of events. So, and we had I think early 90s, we had the All-Star game here, too, which was pretty cool. But
was it 92 or 91?
I really can't remember. But it was early 90s. That created a lot of energy across the city, and it was a big deal. but the Coliseum, it was the Charlotte Coliseum, which isn't even there anymore. So
Really?
they came in, they built the Coliseum. It was a great place to watch the game. It was sold out every night. It was super loud. I can remember, playing the Celtics in the East Finals. I think it was the Eastern Finals.
I think it was the first round, John. I think it was.
Okay, yeah. And Alonzo Mourning hit a turnaround jumper against the Celtics, and I was there, and it was one of the loudest places I've ever been.
Jesus,
so that was a pretty good experience. But we actually had season tickets at the time, so Uncle Jeff. So my dad and Uncle Jeff would split season tickets, and then I was a Hornets fan, and my brother was a Michael Jordan fan. So I would go to a lot of the games, and then Mike would go to the games against the Bulls. So he got to see Michael Jordan play quite a bit. Who's also a North Carolinian.
Yeah.
He's out from Wilmington. So so the Hornets were a really big deal. And again, I was a Hornets fan, and I still kind of followed the Sixers, and still an Eagles fan because it was either the Eagles or Redskins or Falcons, or Cowboys or 49ers, and I didn't. So then the mid '90s, that's when we got the Panthers.
Yeah.
So the Panthers were, they came into town, and they didn't have a stadium built at first. They played down at Clemson, South Carolina, the first, I want to say the first year while the stadium was being built.
The Panthers were played in Clemson. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they played at Clemson their first year. So we're playing NFL games there, which was pretty interesting. I never went there to go see them play, but yeah, they were there.
Is this when the Clemson Tigers had Terrell Pryor, and they had a good linebacker too? I forgot his name, but they were really good pros at that time. They got drafted. I think one of them was Terrell Pryor, and then the other guy, I forgot his name, but they were really good, solid players for Clemson at that time. Hey, Spencer, how's it going, man? So Spencer is also a NASCAR fan, John. He, I believe, is from Charlotte or North Carolina as well, but now he lives in Virginia, I think. So that's part of following, John.
So believe it or not, I've never been to a NASCAR race. I don't follow. I don't follow NASCAR, and I've never been to a race. So NASCAR conversation, I'm not going to be able to help too much.
So Spencer, whenever I went to visit John and his family, hey Tom, the first NASCAR race was on TV. I put on John's TV because I want to watch it. It's so bad. But yeah, it was during COVID, so I appreciate you guys, John. So John, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I remember those years, whenever it was the Hall of Fame game between the the Panthers and the Jaguars, and it was a big deal because Herbie's teams from the South, and they're playing their first game at the Hall of Fame game in Canton. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it seems like both of them were built for early success with Kevin Green. With I believe it was Muhammad, what's his name? Muhammad.
Yeah, he came a little bit later. Frank Reich was actually the quarterback on that the quarterback on that team. So it was Frank Reich and Kevin Green, and Sam Mills, and it was a bunch of them. And I didn't, really for me, I was in 95, 96, that time I wasn't really a huge Panthers fan. I was 16, 17, 18 years old and in high school and doing other things and playing sports and all that. So I didn't really follow the Panthers, too much, until I got out of college. And then I started following them quite a bit more, but we definitely watched them play, but it was a little different than it is now. And I don't know if there was the same type of buzz there was even when the Hornets came in. I felt like but it could have been my age and all that. But yeah, they came in, and when we came in with the Jaguars, I think the next season we played in the NFC Championship game maybe to to go to the Super Bowl. So we had.
You just lost the Packers, right?
I really can't remember. I can't remember. It was a long time. I'd have to look that up, but yeah.
I know the Jaguars played the Broncos, I believe, in that AFC Championship game, and they lost to John Elway. Something like that. Well, sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have a good memory, so I remember these things. The Panthers got Kerry Collins, right, in the draft, correct?
So we actually drafted Kerry Collins. Yeah, and I'll give you a funny story about that too, Lonnie. Is we've got somewhat of a connection with Kerry Collins because when I was about 12 or 13 years old, maybe a little, about 12 or 13 years old, Kerry Collins, no, I must have been older than that. I was probably 15 or 16 at the time. And we were renting out a house in the next county over from Charlotte Mecklenburg. And Kerry Collins actually was the one that rented out our house out there.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So it was an interesting time. I'm sure everybody kind of knows the Kerry Collins story, but he was a little, he was young, early draft pick. He liked to have fun. So, there's some interesting stories that we can talk about offline with Kerry Collins. But yeah, so he rented our house back there in the mid 90s. Yeah, I mean, good player, never really kind of panned out like we thought he was going to, but yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, because I remember I'm a big Penn State fan, John, and I'm sure you know that. And that whole '94 Penn State team was a really great team. And I remember Kerry Collins going, I think, 9th or 10th in that draft. And, he didn't have the greatest of arms, but he could throw the ball pretty good. And he came from a very compact offense at Penn State. So I remember John Carter went to the Bengals. They had Brady, the tight end, going to the Jets. You had Bobby Ingram, I believe, going to the Bears. So there was a lot of talent there at Penn State during that time. And I remember Kerry Collins having an up and down career because he had talent. It's just like you said, he had partied too much.
Yeah, he liked to have a good time.
Yeah. So John, tell us about your favorite athletes growing up. I know I could talk about mine, but you're my guest. So I'm going to have you talk about how what athlete growing up did you gravitate the most, or what athletes rather?
So I think starting off, I mean, being a a Philly fan all around, I loved watching Randall Cunningham play. I loved watching Charles Barkley play. Even Allen Iverson, a few years later, I loved watching him play. Loved watching the '93 Phillies play. So I kind of followed them, and then like I was saying earlier, when the Hornets came in, that was just a fun team to watch. Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning and Muggsy Bogues, and it had a nice group, and they related to Charlotte. So it was it was fun watching those guys, and then obviously the superstars. It was always fun watching Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and all those guys. And the NBA was a little different back then. The NBA was actually a lot of fun to watch. There was a lot of they were aggressive, and they it was and they played really hard, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And then as I kind of got a little bit older and getting into like the early 2000s, that's when I really started, becoming really getting into the Panthers. And, you got Delhomme that was a lot of fun to watch. Muhsin Muhammad, like you were talking about, Steve Smith, came in as a kick returner. And I think it was 2001, it was the year that I think we only won one game that year, but he opened up the season with a kickoff return, and and then he kind of wrote his story from there. But he was one of my favorite players, and and yeah, and baseball is, I'm still a Phillies fan. So it's been fun watching them over the years, and but yeah, I mean it's just been a plethora of players. I mean, I like watching guys that play hard and they have fun, and they know how to win. So Steph Curry's one of them. I mean, Steph Curry's from right down the street, so he's been a lot of fun to watch and watch him develop and turn into who he is. Yeah, it's just I enjoy watching good athletes go out and do their thing.
John, you say that, and it's funny because I remember Dale Carey, his dad, being really a good 3-point shooter and never got the recognition he deserves as far as being on some good teams. He was on the Hornets there for a little bit, and as well as the Bucks, and I think the Cavaliers. I think so. Yeah, his dad had a very solid career, and I think John, he's raised both his sons to be great people as well, like good Christian men, and you see that on a basketball court. You see that in person as well. That he's very personable. He's one of those superstars in NBA now that you want to root for because he is a very, very nice guy. He doesn't go in the media bashing people. He doesn't. He's not hated like a certain LeBron James is. But John, like yourself, I was raised an Eagles fan, Flyers fan, Phillies fan, Villanova, Penn State, even Sixers. So my heroes were Dr. J, man. Even outside of basketball, he was really, really a pleasant person to watch. And even if you're a fan of an Office like I am, that Jim Halpert even says himself that Dr. J is his own personal hero. And I like Charles Barkley as well. I think Charles Barkley resembles Philadelphia. I think that it sounds like him. Aaron Cunningham, like you said, Brian Dawkins, Allen Iverson. Those guys. Have a good feeling for Philadelphia. They love Philadelphia. Even Jason Kelsey. He was beloved in Philadelphia. I don't know how you feel about Jason Kelsey or the Kelsey brothers, but I think they've done well for themselves. I think that every football fan should enjoy the way they talk, the way they play. They play hard. And we admire people like that. So, so John, what are you doing right now? Or what sports are you following? I know the Panthers are pretty big in your heart. So, what are you currently watching right now as far as sports goes?
So it's baseball season's just starting, which is nice. I'm actually heading out to my alma mater, Wingate University. I'm going to go watch them play today. It's a small Division II school outside of Charlotte, and just a good program. They actually won the national championship a couple years ago, I think in 22. So they got a good program. A guy that I played with is the head coach there, and a lot of guys go back and watch. So it's fun to go out and watch some games and hang out with some old teammates. And so baseball. I'm ready for the season to start. And then last night it was nice to see the Tar Heels wear out. So that was it's always nice to sweep those guys a couple times. So I wouldn't say I'm a huge college basketball fan, but I don't like Duke, and I kind of like Carolina.
It's funny to say it, John, because like growing up, I couldn't stand Duke. So anytime I rooted for North Carolina as well last night. My boss is actually a big Tar Heel fan himself, so I was pulling for them. And McCormick Bryant has a street shot on him, man. I was so glad for them, and so glad for Armando Baycock as well. He's been through a lot of injuries, and he's still managed to stay with the program. So I admire that about that, and I hope that they have a good run. I'm looking forward to the tournament, John. Every year I look forward to the tournament. Villanova's not very good this year, and I'm looking forward to see how University of Houston play out. I hope they do well. I hope that they have a good Final Four or March Madness, and as well as North Carolina. I really don't have a dog in the fight, really. I like Villanova. I'm a big U of H fan. Living in Houston, I love U of H. So I hope they have a good run. But like you said, this baseball season starting up. I'm also a big soccer fan, as you know, and they won yesterday, 2-1 against Brentford. So they're on top of the table now. Looking forward to see how that works out. And NASCAR is today as well, John. So, yeah, I worked all week this week, so I'm probably gonna hang out and watch some sports. So John, so did you guys ever get into Hurricanes at all? The hockey team?
No, those are three sports that I've never really followed at all and have know nothing about. It's NASCAR, hockey, and soccer. Watch a lot of college wrestling. I enjoy wrestling. So, baseball, wrestling, basketball, football is about the extent of my sports knowledge.
So it's funny to say that. Because me and Tom and sometimes Spencer and we have our own Tom and Tony, friends from our other podcast. We've had our own group on Twitter for the past 2 years, and we've decided to have our own wrestling podcast, the fake wrestling, so to speak. So we've been doing that for the past year or so, and it's pretty fun, John. I grew up. My dad and I would always argue about Monday Night Football or Raw. So that was my extent of wrestling. But who's gonna win? Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes? Roman Reigns or Cody? I say Cody Rhodes. Tom, sorry, man. But the only wrestling I watched, John, is Roman Greek wrestling during the Olympics. However, I've kind of been more intrigued about Penn State. They're a powerhouse right now, and they got the coach from I believe Iowa State, Kel
Anderson, yeah,
Kel Henderson.
yeah.
I feel like Penn State to me is a college that has top-notch programs. I know that hockey is up and coming. It's newer there at Penn State, but wrestling at Penn State has skyrocketed ever since Charles Henderson has come along.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, John, just talking to us about how Charles Henderson is as a man and as a wrestler.
So he was a 4-time national champion, and I think you're right. I think he was Iowa State, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but 4-time national champion. And then, I think he's been pretty incredible with what he's done. I mean, he's won the Big Ten for the last 11 or 12 years, I think. In a row. There may be one in there that that they didn't win, but I mean, they've got, even right now, they've got 4 or 5 guys ranked number 1 in the country. They've got 2 guys right now that'll be wrestling this year for a 4-time, to be 4-time national champions. So they're pretty impressive. I mean, one of their guys who was one of my favorite guys to watch was Bo Nichols, who's now in the UFC, and he's just wearing people out in the UFC. So he's they've had so many really, really, really good wrestlers over the last, 12, 13 years. I mean, it's hard to even – because Iowa was the powerhouse for a long time, and nobody can touch Penn State at all. I mean, it's not even close.
I wonder this is a curiosity question. I wonder how much they paid him to be at Penn State.
I don't know.
Before that, Penn State was not a bad wrestling school at all. They just weren't to Iowa's level, and he had to find something intriguing about going to Penn State because you can't just pry away a coach like that, a person like that from Iowa. And I think they come from Iowa, John. Now that I think about it, but Iowa State's still a pretty good school anyway. But I mean, it takes a lot of money and a lot of courage to go from a Big Ten school to do that, So John, how did you become involved with wrestling? I know you're a big baseball catcher. You broke records at different busters. So talk to us about how you became more involved in the wrestling as growing up as well.
Yeah, so my Uncle Troy wrestled in high school. He was a really good wrestler at Pennsgrove. And he ended up going to – my dad played golf at East Carolina. And my Uncle Troy came down. My dad was a few years old, several years older than Uncle Troy. But after he was gone and graduated, my Uncle Troy actually came down to East Carolina to wrestle. He didn't finish. He didn't finish there, but he's the one that kind of got us into wrestling. So we started when we were young. My brother and I both. I mean, we were 6, 7 years old and grew up wrestling, and had decent careers, and just really respect the sport. So I like to get out and watch high school wrestling around here and some college wrestling on TV, and it's just a really good sport. So. There's really nothing else to say about it other than that. I mean, and one thing I'd go back to is, talking about Penn State is, the wrestling up north is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, I mean, those are hotbeds for wrestling. So, when you talk about, a good coach like Cale Sanderson coming in to coach that team and, being in a hotbed, I mean, it's a perfect storm for them to be really, really good.
Yeah, because I remember there was a movie about the DuPont guy. Oh, I forgot the movie, but it's about how I believe it was the '84 Olympics or '88 Olympics. They had Charles there. Anyway, it was a bad deal. I forgot where it was in Pennsylvania, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The big scandal that happened, and the guy being a weird psychopath, and he was really controlling. And
Yeah.
it was Foxcatcher.
Yep.
Foxcatcher, right?
Yep.
So. I remember my cousin Kelly, my Uncle Mike's daughter, my Uncle Michael Spencer, his daughter told me about that and how all that went down. And, like you said, John, the hotbed for New Jersey and Pennsylvania wrestling is unreal over there. And they have really, really good training facilities there in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So, it's a dark spot in the sport, obviously, but there's some good things happening as well in New Jersey and in that area of the country. So, John, I appreciate you having being on here. I know it's for the moment, so it's good talking to you about sports and just giving us a point of view as a Charlotte sports fan, man. I appreciate it, dude.
For sure. Well, Lonnie, thanks for having me, buddy.
You got it, John. Have a good day, man, and talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being on. Thanks for watching the podcast today. I know it's short, but I just want to have my cousin on. He's a big sports fan like myself. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a good Sunday. Take care and see you guys soon. Bye now.